1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Joe Mahaffey, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. And of course, as always, my partner in crime,
James Englehart. Joe, you just went right through the intro with no hesitation. That was awesome. I'm so impressed.
Maybe
Practice.
Maybe recording in evenings during the week is probably better for my psyche to get those things down. I don't know.
We'll find out.
We will find out. So the last time we were together, we talked to Buddy Finothy. And the time before that, we spoke with, of course, Professor Dungeon Master himself. And tonight we don't have a guest. And if anything, we have some things to catch up on because we've had a lot of guests lately. And we're going to have a guest the next time we're together that I don't think you're going to want to miss.
Absolutely not.
So that will be a real exciting to have her on, and we'll just sort of keep it there until we get there. So,
because we're teasers,
we are teasers like that.
World. Yeah.
So, it's funny because we didn't get to some of these things that I have on the list from the last time we were together with Buddy, but there was some news along the way. And I think one of the most interesting things that I saw was a couple things. Number one, there was an article in the New York Times that Magic the Gathering became a $1 billion brand for toy maker Hasbro. And I just know there's been a lot of ways that Wizards of the Coast continue to save the bacon of Hasbro. And that's just another example of that. And in the same time, the CEO of Hasbro, Chris Cox, I won't say anything about that.
Just let it.
We'll just let that. Admitted that they misfired on the OGL.
No, the jokes get better when you said that. That was good.
All right. So, but
they can get excited and then
But they feel like they've course corrected, and big things are coming, and I think between Baldur's Gate and the forthcoming Dungeons and Dragons movie is going to help, restore order. But I can say this, in the few friendly local game stores I've been in the last few weeks, there has been a bit of normalcy. I haven't seen, any fewer D&D games, and I haven't seen any more Pathfinder games. So I think they're just, people are just going forward with what they think they care about, or what they're the games they care about, I guess is a way to say it.
It is. Yeah, anyway. No, I think that makes good sense. Which leads to the next sort of thing that I was interested in that we were looking at is the ways that, the games you're interested in are like, oh, what's the hot stuff going on, right? In terms of tabletop games, particularly board games, because that's kind of my jam particularly. And there was a user on BGG who was looking at, like, if you adjust for, and you people who do more data crunching, because I'm a poet, I don't do a lot of data crunching. I'll build your metaphors for you, but I will not build your databases. Who had worked through, like, essentially, outside of the hotness and the, like, what's getting voted up, what are the actual top games over time? And you can go and cruise through all of his data. But it was fun to look at, like, his top 10 is like Carcassonne, Catan, Seven Wonders, Dominion, Pandemic, Ticket to Ride, Puerto Rico, Power Grid Agricola, Race for the Galaxy. They're like, these are the games that people play all the time. And we show up, you go to your friendly local game store, and these are the ones that are selling, and these are the ones that people want to play, and just keep getting they keep getting republished. And I thought, I can't imagine that everybody is super stoked. Like, years ago when I was first showing up for this stuff in the hobby, I was like, oh, I want to get, the top games that the BGG's ranked. And then that slid away over time, right?
Sure.
And now I'm like, I don't really want. I'm like, Gloomhaven's it's an investment, like in time and a lot of money. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah.
that's fair.
And so I'm not surprised that people are like, yeah, no, I'll buy Seven Wonders and I will play the hell out of Seven Wonders. And yeah. And I
And the-
thought, yeah, that was a good thing to just sort of have a nice little course correction in my own head of like what's really popular. These are the things that people play. And that made sense to me. That was
yeah,
nice.
yeah. And I was looking at this list, and I was kind of looking at it, going, Out of the top 10 that you just mentioned, I think I
Mm-hmm.
have one.
Well,
I have Carcassonne.
I played Carcassonne well, Laura plays, my wife plays Carcassonne.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is her phone game. And we played it early on in our relationship when we were hanging out. And then she's played it and we sat down to play it again in real life.
Right.
And she started, I was like, okay, all right, if this is how, because you can play Carcassonne very friendly,
Sure.
or you can play it very cutthroat. And so the first time she cut me off, I was like, oh, this is how it's going to go. Okay. But it was fun. It was fun. But I had Catan and I sold it, but I played it. Seven
Right.
Wonders I have. Dominion I've played. Pandemic I have. Ticket to Ride I've played a lot. It's an easy one. Everybody talks about this as a gateway game because it's an easy one to teach and to play. It's like, okay, it's rummy with a board. Puerto Rico has some troubling history. Power Grid I've played many times. I have it. Agricola, less, but but it makes sense to me. Like people love these games, particularly once we get into Power Grid, Agricola, Race for the Galaxy. You're like, oh yeah, and Splendor. I mean, yeah, it keeps going, and you're like, you look at this and think, yeah, no, these are the top games. If once you get out of mass market, this is the next level up into the hobby space. So it made me sort of happy to see, yeah, that tracks. Like Gloomhaven, the super hardcore geeks are of course going to love Gloomhaven, but everybody else who has a job and children, yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple things you hit on. Like, number one, it's interesting to see Wingspan at 23 on this list, given the fact that it's only been out less than 5 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is to your point, climbing the charts because it's a gateway game. Like Catan, it's a gateway game. There are people who on-ramp into this hobby with certain games, and a lot of these are in the top 25. And I think that's a fair thing. I think it's also interesting about the way you talked about what was hot at the time when I got into the game versus what do I play now? I mean, this is one of the things that we struggle with when we look at our collection. Like, what do you want to play this week? And I look at the list and I look at games that when they came out and we just were playing them all the time, and now we barely look at them. Like Kanagawa is a great example of that. Well, Kanagawa was probably the game we got after Wingspan, and I can't remember the last time I played Kanagawa. Colors of Paris. When Colors of Paris came out, we were all over that game. We loved the motif and the whole expression of it. And honestly, when Canvas came out, I don't think we ever looked back at it again. I kind of feel like that classic meme picture where the guy is holding hands with the girl, but he's looking back at the other girl. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's
that's a good that's a good reference. I like that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, this is an interesting article. I will put this in the show notes for everybody to take a look at. So the last time we were together, we were going to go through our normal routine of what's on the table. But instead we decided to dedicate all the time to our guest because it was such a compelling conversation.
He was awesome. Yeah. That was a great conversation.
So I think it makes sense for us to kind of spend more time today sort of talking about what's been on our table for the last few weeks. And I will jump in here.
You should, man, because I played Paint the Roses, and I pitched it to you, and so I'm very curious about your response to that.
So you pitched it on this very show
I did,
back in
yeah.
the November December time frame, and I picked it up and I just hit it. I said, "This is
Yeah.
going to be my Valentine's present." I got it.
Aw.
I figured it out. So Valentine's Day, we pulled out Paint the Roses, and we have played it. We've enjoyed it. 9 times out of 10, we have won.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I don't know if that's because we're just lousy at the way we shuffle the cards, or
y'all are synced. You're just like a psychic.
Well, just the way that we, and honestly, I think we probably shouldn't have won a couple of those just because of the way we were trying to communicate. Because part of it's like, remember what I said last time,
Oh yeah. So
there are some
when I played it, it's like nobody's saying nothing. Like, they're the cubes, y'all. What you gonna? Yeah.
But I do have only played it 2-player. I'm curious to play it with more than just 2.
I think it starts to pick up at 3 at least. Yeah.
Well, that's generally what we find, is that most games really hit their stride at 3.
Yeah, and I know that's the problem for those of us who mostly play with our partners. Right?
Yep. But anyway, we enjoyed it. We had a great time with it.
Okay. And you played it multiple times.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
Yep.
And Dale liked the theme.
Loves the theme. She's a big Alice in Wonderland fan. That was easy. Anything Alice in Wonderland, I know I'm on brand when it comes to that. So that was good. So we enjoyed that game a lot. And
good. Yay.
Then
makes me happy.
Then of course, as we go through our shelf of shame, we pulled Vodoran Gardens off,
which I don't know anything about. So tell me about that one.
Yeah, so Vodoran Gardens is part of the City of Kings ecosystem. So the City of Kings was the first game that Frank West brought out. Then I think it was Vodoran Gardens. Okay. And then came Isle of Cats, and with Isle of Cats, you get all the other accoutrements of the Isle of Cats series. Yeah. So, but he also tends to use polyomino shapes, and so in this instance, you're basically building a tableau, if you will. Where there's grassland, there is like dirt, and then there's water. There's 3 different elements, and depending upon the card that you're taking it from the row, it has to have a certain symbol or capability for you to play the card. And you're playing it in a way that's kind of like polyominoes, in the sense that the way that you line up the cards to create a pathway. And then there's icons on the cards that if you get a certain number of icons or a certain outcome based on the bonus, because the bonus cards can change, you then get extra scoring for that.
Okay.
And then to include the distance of a pathway, you have to have at least 3 elements in that pathway.
Okay.
But there's cards that come out that really screw you.
Oh.
And that are totally random. Like, you're working on a pathway, you have a vision to how you're going to get there, but the next card says you have to place it like this or like this, and you have no choice. And in other words, they line up either vertically or horizontally, for those of you who can't see what I'm doing with my hands. And and it just messes up your pathway, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're looking at it, you're looking at the type of card you can.
Overlapping of the cards.
Yeah. So
have you ever played Honshu? Do you know the game Honshu?
I've heard of it. Haven't played it.
Okay, so it also has a sort of overlapping thing. Is there an engine that like develops out of this, or?
No, I mean, it's really just the cards that you get, and in a 2-player game you have 10 goes, and you're
trying to get through the garden then.
Well, you're just trying to get through the 10 goes and then see what you have. And then in certain things that you find, you get a little icon, little wooden meeple type of icon that will give you some extra points at the end as well. So it's just it's a very small box. It's a square, and it's easy. It's nice and portable.
And are you doing your own path, or there's a community?
Like nope. Everybody's got their own set of. Everybody's playing their own game. You decide how you want to unpack it. You look at the bonuses. Like I might choose, I'm going for the water bonus. Dale might choose to go for the grass bonus, and we're not competing with each other in terms of resources or cards.
Okay.
But it's just a really
It's sort of a puzzle. Each of you that are
Yeah,
working through. Yeah. Okay.
but the thing about it is, the thing I love about this game is that
Yeah.
you get into this thing and you go, "Wow, this is an easy game,"
Okay.
and then all of a sudden you go, "Oh shit, this is not an easy game," because the things that you can place are dictated by the symbol that's in the row that you're in. And it can really mess you up when you have a strategy and realize you have the perfect card, but you can't play it because you don't have the icon on the board.
That's really compelling.
Yeah, so it's an inexpensive game,
cool.
and it's
And a little
super
box.
portable. The cards are cute. I mean, in terms of like, they're perfect squares,
Yeah.
They look like Star Trek playing cards, if that makes sense. If you've ever seen them play cards on Star Trek, they're not normal sized.
No, it's nice little squares. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just a really cute game. We enjoy it. And then next I have this
is it quick? And it looks like it plays pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does. You can
Okay.
get through it because it's 10 goes. It's 10 goes. And so you have 10 cards that come out, and the cards are basically those icons saying what you can play from that row. So you have 2 rows.
Okay.
And then you have 10 cards. So you have 2 on the board and 8 in the stack. And you're constantly replacing them as you finish off a row.
Okay.
And then once that happens, you're good to go. I mean, you just keeps moving you forward, forward. Yeah.
So, wow, nice. Okay, cool. And then you've got, what's this next one?
So this next, I'll be honest with you, we haven't played it yet. I had it on here with the anticipation that we were going to play it, but it is indeed the Meadow Downstream expansion. And we are looking at it. We thought we were going to get it played, and then life happens, and so we didn't. But we are anxious to get it on the board and play it very soon. So, but it is the expansion. I did order it. I think I mentioned that last time we were together.
Yep.
I ordered it from Zulu Games in the UK because they couldn't find it anywhere here in the United States, and so it's here, and it's beautiful. And what's interesting, what I can say about it is the board kind of attaches to the existing board, kind of like you might do something with Everdell with one of their expansions,
Right.
And then there is a lazy river, if you will, and the way that you make certain choices moves you down the river.
This little otter.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking lazy river makes perfect sense to me.
Yep. So that's and it's got the same design aesthetic as the original game. It was designed and printed in Poland, so you get and I think we've talked about this before, how when just the feel of the material and the art is just so different than something that's produced offshore in China or somewhere else. It's really just interesting to see that type of variety, I guess, is a way to say it.
Well, it looks adorable. I mean, the whole vibe looks, yeah. Lazy River looks good. Cool.
Yep. So those have been the main ones that we've been playing. We've got some that we're going to try to get out on the game table here soon. I'm going to talk about them a little bit later when we talk about what I've either backed or acquired or what have you. So how about you? What's been on your table?
So you and I have been discussing, I don't know if it actually showed up in the feed itself, but SolForge, it appeared on your doorstep, and then you sent it to my doorstep.
Not really sure why we got it, but thank you.
Yeah.
Whoever it was.
Thank you, SolForge people. And what's interesting, the first thing to note is that SolForge was digitally born. Right. And now it's Richard Garfield and one of the guys from Ascension, whose name escapes me, combined to do. So part of the backstory is that Garfield had done Keyforge.
Right, sure.
Right, which was a what's the word I'm looking for here?
Deck builder that was self-contained.
No, it was driven by computer stuff. The word again.
Oh yeah. Computerly each deck was
Yeah,
unique and it had a unique set of
yeah.
cards.
And algorithmically, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Algorithmically generated, and so they had all this stuff. It was like, okay, so that was cool. And it was the first time that we had done this. The other problem, well, one of the funny things about Keyforge that the names for the decks were also algorithmically generated, and algorithms and AI really don't speak English. They just
Mimic it.
give it back to you.
Yeah.
And so early on, there were Keyforge decks that had lamentable titles, and there was a whole threads across the internet of lamentable titles. So, and so it was kind of solving the sort of Magic the Gathering. Oh, if you're the richest little kid, richest dude, you just have the best deck because you can do all the deck building. And so Keyforge was like, oh no, we can, interrupt that with this algorithm, and you just get random cards. Great. But the problem was that people really liked to deck build. And so SolForge, we've discussed in earlier versions of this conversation, that there was like, yeah, but people do like to do the deck building. So SolForge is the meeting of that, where you've got two half decks and you can buy two half decks, also algorithmically generated. It didn't land well. It felt like it was solving a problem. I mean, I guess it does, but the problem is that you can still have wildly unbalanced half decks. And we did. The set that we got, there was one half deck that was just unbeatable. It, like, the first time we played, it won by, like, that deck, wherever it went, won by at least 20 points. When it combined with another deck, it won by 50. You start with 50 health. It was just a complete stomping. It was terrible. And so I think that's like, if I bought another set of, and you can buy them at 4 half decks at a time for like 30 or 40 bucks. I don't want to, it feels like it's gone back to the same problem. Like, oh yeah, well, if you've got the money, you can, oh yeah, that one sucked, so you can buy another set of them for a whole lot of money. It's just another richest kid wins kind of thing. And there's just a bunch of little fiddliness too that goes into it, where you're just like, it was born digital, and you can see how the born digital, like the digital space would solve the problems of keeping track of things. And yeah, it was just did not land well, I have to say.
Well, that's, it's, hey, honest reviews here, people. Even though they gave us the game for free, we're going to tell you what we think. So there you go. Well, it's funny. I have sort of a love-hate relationship with Keyforge anyway, because I have a boatload of decks and keys and mats that I got early on when it was hot. Okay. And then that thing cooled down so fast. It's not even on the wall of shame. It's like hidden up in one of these.
See, now, so to be fair, Laura and I then busted out Keyforge.
Okay.
And so we lost to whoever had the red the red deck, I think, whichever it was, lost. Like every time, whoever had that deck,
sure,
like half deck, lost every single time, and there was just nothing you could do. And so I convinced her, like, well, we should do this. We should play Keyforge just to see. And she's like, yeah. Keyforge was more interesting, and one of the things that's more interesting is in SolForge, you're attacking the other person, right? Like the other player loses health, and we were both thinking that I'm just uncomfortable. I don't want to attack you. I like you. I sleep next to you. I don't want to. That just seems mean. I don't want to, like. Yeah, that's not a bad. It's just bad rhetoric, right? And so Keyforge, you're building keys. So we played Keyforge a couple of times. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure I like these head-to-head, card games, but Keyforge at least there was a better give and take, and you were trying to do something that wasn't killing the other person."
Right.
And yeah,
The
so
old
that was
you
that
don't
was a
have
lot,
to be
yeah.
mean to win.
Right. Well, and you do have to be mean to win, but and there's a psychological difference, right, between like I'm going to be mean to your key building ability versus
Right.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were playing SolForge, we shifted to you deal damage to the other player, like you deal damage to the other player's forge, right? And it feels like there's just so many little tweaks that they could have done to make SolForge accessible. And instead, they relied on like, hey, y'all kids love magic. Let's do that again, even if you're 50. And it just, it, yeah, it did not hit well.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So, and then we had Laura and I went out with friends and came back and played a couple of just sort of filler games. So
Mm-hmm.
Stroop is a fantastic and bizarre little game. Do you know what the Stroop effect is?
No.
Okay, so it's like someone says there's the word orange, and it's written in blue, and they say, what color is the word written in? And
You try to
your
say blue,
brain
but
is
your brain
doing
says orange.
two different things at
Yeah,
the same time.
I do.
Yep.
I have heard of this. Yes.
Yep. And so the Stroop game is based entirely on that. It is a fantastically weird. The other thing that's weird about Stroop, the game, is it asks you to do this in real time, trying to shed cards and doing it as fast as you can while your brain is not functioning. Yeah, and it's a small box. In earlier years, we would have said like maybe a cigarette box in a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of things that your brain doesn't want to do, fantastic, super quick, well done, just a lot of fun and a lot of hilarity of like yeah, and people are standing there like I have a handful of cards and I don't know how to talk about them.
That's awesome.
Super cute. Yeah, and I think it's still around. Say Anything is a we played Stroop, and then Say Anything, which is a just basic super fun party game.
Do you have to hold
a
boombox over your head?
Yes, that's
and play
the first
Peter
thing you
Gabriel.
do. Everybody gets a boombox on top. Yeah,
in your eyes. Peter Gabriel.
Below, yeah.
And it's in your eyes. Okay.
So, but Say Anything is basically apples to apples or anything else, except you get to write your own responses to it.
Right.
And because I was hanging out with a fiction writer, a philosopher, and a biologist, it got.
Did you all walk into a bar? Never mind.
And it got very naughty very quick. So it's like people like, does it have to be Cards Against Humanity? No. Saying Anything can be just as
That's great. I love it.
But it's it's like any other match, don't match. The person says something, but just Say Anything gives you the. I guess there's a Say Anything After Dark kind of version that gives you sort of naughty prompts, but really you could be as basic and family friendly or not as you choose. And then our hosts for that evening were Canadian, so we played the Canadian national tabletop game, which is Crokinole. And do you know this game?
Nope, not at all.
Oh my god, this is one of the great dexterity games, I think, of all time, where you've got a circular board and you've got, I think, 3 rings, and the inner ring has little pegs that impede you from doing as well as you might like, because games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a little sunken hole in the middle that's just a little bit larger than the discs that you're flicking, trying to sink into the hole. And it's just super fun to knock these things, the little discs. And it's easy to play 2-player. It's best at 2 or 4, where you can play teams.
Sure.
And my friend and I, the philosopher and I, the 2 dudes, were well behind the women. And then at the very last round, we basically, every disc we shot scored the extra 20 points from sinking into the middle. And these are the joyful moments and bizarre, weird, wonderful things that just make games so wonderful, where you're like, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened. And it's one of the fun things about dexterity games. Like in a strategy game, you don't expect that. That's not what you play a strategy game for. And these, dexterity games, you just want something weird and bizarre and wonderful to happen. So that was a nice, lovely evening.
I like when you look at it on BGG, it says made in 1876.
Yeah. Yep. By nuns, apparently. This is the story. I'm not sure about this one, but yeah.
So it's interesting, you talked about a couple of games here, and you kind of classified them as party games because you've been hanging out with some folks. And I don't think we've really taken a moment for those of you who are listeners to this podcast, may notice that we have a musical bumper that it lets us into the show and takes us out. And that is by a friend of the show, Chris Keener, and his band at the time was The Strangers. The name of the song is Pictionary. He's drawing a word. So I think if you go back to the original episode where we first launched it, I have the whole single at the very end of there. And so we will continue to be using that. So thanks to Chris, friend of the show, for letting us use that with his permission. So we're very grateful.
And party games are not something we generally talk about in the hobby. Like when we're doing podcasts and other media, it's like, yeah, we tend to overlook them a little bit, but my God, they're just fun.
Yeah.
It's just a good thing to do.
Now it looks like you have Fjords on here.
Yeah. So I had a birth. We talked about this. I had a birthday recently, and Fjords was one of these games that showed up on my doorstep, and it's a nice little tile laying, and Laura and I played it once, and we're looking forward to exploring. There's several other little mini expansions in the box, and so Laura's a big fan of tile laying. Again, Carcassonne is her kind of go-to. So, and this was the re-implementation of it.
Yep.
I think.
There was an original iteration of it.
Yep. And it's solid little fun game. I mean, there was a lot to think about, and it's fun because the first half of it, you're putting both the tiles out and then your little longhouses, and then afterward you're kind of expanding off of the longhouses, and it has a Carcassonne kind of feel,
sure,
except with hexagons. So yeah, highly recommended. It was super fun.
Oh, we love this game. We love this game. We had backed it on Kickstarter and got it, when it first came out. So we've been playing that for a while. In fact, it was funny because when it arrived, there was a young lady in the neighborhood who was from Norway. It was here on like a foreign exchange kind of thing. And so we tried to get her to play.
And how'd she do?
She didn't play. She didn't come over.
It
didn't work out, but it was just funny because she's like, Fjords? I was like, yes, Fjords. Yeah. Not a Ford, but a fjord.
Yes.
So yeah. Cool.
And so you've got, and so now we're moving from one sort of tabletop to another. I'm looking at this
after traveling.
Whoops. Sorry. Good.
Yeah, you're traveling. I don't know, but
No, I clicked
this
the link by accident here. I don't know why I did that.
uh,
Yeah,
that
so it's interesting. We find ourselves, at this stage of looking at Kickstarters not only for games but for some other types of events. And so, as I had mentioned before, um, we have been 3D printing, and there have been a
yes,
number of um, Kickstarters that are really designed for the 3D print. And one of them was this thing called Wiz Tower. Very inexpensive. Well, all these things, when you're just getting the STL files, you're probably looking in the, $20 on the low end, $50 on the high end, depending upon how many sculpts there are, and what is your
but
Creative
still,
Commons license that you can do with them. Because sometimes if you're willing to pay more, they'll give you the permission to print and sell, which I have no desire to do.
right on. Okay.
So there's like a license, if you will.
Yep.
But this Wiz Tower is kind of neat because you get the pieces, you print them out, you put magnets in them, these very special magnets that you can get anywhere. And then it allows you to build your terrain very quickly, and the magnets hold it all together. And then you can take it off. Like if you built a tower, your D&D group says you're at the tower. What do? We go into the tower. Okay, you open up the door. You can kind of open up that side of the tower and let everybody see what's inside.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so thought that was really cool. In fact, it's interesting. I backed it a couple weeks ago when I put this in here, and it closed. And because it's STL, you don't have to wait for all the production to be done.
Right.
They just deliver. And because I use my mini factory, which is the place you can get some really great minis, they just load it into your library at my mini factory, so you can just download it when you're ready to print, which is kind of cool. So
fantastic.
Yeah, so that's one. The other one I backed is called.
Have you built any of these, or just?
Well, they haven't. I'm just now. Actually, I just finished doing the backer kit thing you got to do.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And it's supposed to deliver into my library Saturday. So no, I haven't printed any of these yet. So they're coming.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And then one of the other ones I print, or one of the other ones that I backed, Pirates versus Sailors.
Okay.
That one finally delivered. I just downloaded those, but they're also going to put them in my mini factory library so I can get them there. But they came out with a new one called the Cruise, so you can get the little minis for the pirates and the sailors to go with it. So they did a little one. It wasn't very expensive, so you kind of complete the set. So now I can, if I want to run Ghost of the Salt Marsh again, instead of using the ship that I used then, I can print one of these and then put the crew out and make it a little bit more interesting for the folks.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited by that. I've got both the PLA based printer and the resin printer, so I can kind of work with both of those. And I'm going to talk about this more in a minute about the painting, but I've gotten into doing the painting piece. And so I'm finding that's very therapeutic and cathartic. And to be quite frank, doing that has probably taken my eye off the ball of buying more games.
That's fair.
So there's a cost savings to it. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
that's a rationalization.
I'm also just interested in the ways that these STL files allow people to build whatever they want or can at home or at libraries. I mean, there's other maker spaces too that have these things, and that just opens up so much flexible. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And the files themselves are inexpensive, so yeah. It's just an interesting space to be in, right?
What I haven't quite figured out yet is what's going to happen when I print them. And then I got to figure out how to store them.
Yeah, there's that.
Because that will very quickly come into play.
Storage is going to be,
Yeah, because it's like, that'll require a different. I wonder if IKEA has a shelf set for that, like the K-Lags.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I should get on that.
Yeah.
Over there in the fjords.
I was going to say, it's the smooth tigers. Yeah.
So this next one that I backed, Professor Dungeon Master actually did a video purely on this game. like an 8-minute commercial. So I encourage you to
Okay.
check out his video on this. But Shadow Dark is like taking old school essentials D&D
Mhm.
and marrying it with some elements of 5e.
That's awesome.
And
I see that
it's
they were 7,000% funded, so
yeah,
that's saying something.
yeah. I think it's still open. It's very compelling.
Wow. Yeah.
It's very simple, old school. They've got some maps and stuff in there, but they even have one of the things you can download off their page is one of the traditional dungeons
Okay.
from D&D, and then just kind of run it with this system. So it's it's real simple. It comes with very simple characters. You don't get to do all these different mods and stuff, and it's just the rolls are the way you go. So it's old school essentials with some 5e baked in. I just encourage people to check out the video on it, and I'll put the link to the Kickstarter
cool.
in the show notes. But definitely check out. Well, it's not just Professor Dungeon Master. A lot of influencers on YouTube have done a segment on Shadow Dark, including the people, the Arcane Library, that are putting it off. So you can actually see the creators.
Cool.
These are young, and these are not like old school people that have done this. These are more young folks that are really, interested in looking back as they move forward, if you will. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's kind of interesting. It takes you back to that classic feel of D&D before, 5e. So like 5e was like, oh, you can multi-class and all these different things. And, oh, there's advantage. There's, 0 hit points. Oh, well, you're not dead. You're just dying. Let's roll some, it takes away a lot of that. And it really raises the stakes a little bit back in the day to what we're used to.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I remember playing D&D back in the day, and it was also like, here's a chart, here's another chart. You have to cross-reference these other charts. And like THAC0, like a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. So I'm interested to see how they're going to sort of upgrade the more like making things feel more dire and there's more at stake versus the, oh my God, you need spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And many of them. So yeah, okay, that's
so check it out. I think it's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile check out and it's very accessible if you want to get. You can get in on the PDF only, and it's super cheap, and it delivers right away, like in a month.
Oh, wow.
Like in a month, and then if you wanted to go ahead and get the hard copy as well as all the digital stuff, you got to wait till like June. So not long, which I thought was pretty cool.
No, June is good. I'll have a 2-year-old at that point. That's good.
There you go. See, that happens.
Yeah.
This next one's not even a 3D print or a D&D game at all. It is
curious about this little thing you've got here.
Yeah, it's basically Game Envy's the organization. They did this idea of a pop-up cup a while back, and this little brush thing in there. And it's really just designed for you to have a pop-up cup for when you're painting and to dip your brush in. But then they have and then they have this little squidgy cleany thing that allows you to get the paint off the brush but protect the bristles. So it's really designed to get all the water out, get the brush clean so you can move from color to color or style to style if you're doing speed paints or something like that. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm painting. This could be pretty interesting. That is a problem.
Looks like it could be useful for other painters as well.
Yes.
Just minis.
Yeah. It's they and actually what's really interesting is there's a lot to back there. They had some like wet palette stuff and a few other things. If you go to their GameEnvy.net website, which you can find, some of this stuff is available now. The cup is new and won't be out till like June-ish. But some of the other things that you could get as an add-on, you can actually just buy right now and they'll ship it to you. So this is an inventor. I think he's in Hagerstown, Maryland. And he's just, been building a livelihood with his own cottage industry. And this is just his latest thing. And it's smart. I mean, he's gauging the interest in the product by getting pre-orders through Kickstarter. He's going to be able to make sure that his manufacturing is pretty much covering his costs, and then he'll have a steady state to kind of reorder kind of thing. So I think it's a smart move on his part to know, hey, I've got some guaranteed sales, but it's a very useful product.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's all there is in the I bought Kickstarter.
And then there's intriguing.
There's intrigued. You have one and I have one.
Yeah, man.
So why don't you start first?
Okay. Oh no, all right. So I was seeing this game called Arborea. Looks real. It's a vibrant and busy board. But one of the things that really caught my attention about this is that it's a sort of worker placement, but delayed worker placement and then travel along paths. And so it felt like you probably haven't played Zulkin, Joe?
No.
Okay. So Zulkin, the Mayan calendar game, has these famously um, gears. And there's this big Mayan calendar disc in the middle, and then other little discs off the side. And what you do is you put your worker, as you know, as you do in worker placement games, you put them someplace. But it doesn't immediately pay off. You then move the calendar. And as you move the calendar, they move along. And the farther along they go, the better the rewards. But you only have a limited number of workers, and so you have to start pulling them off to put them back on. And there are other things that you want to do, right? So this reminded me of that, in that they've got, with each of the places you put your worker on, and then instead of a disc, it's just a single sliding line that moves over. And then when you decide to jump out, you don't get the reward, or there are a series of rewards as you move through a couple of trails down to, I guess, the place where you pull them back. And I thought, the board's a little busy visually, but I love the concept of, like, someone has finally done a little bit more. There have been a couple of versions of it, but like this one looks like a really interesting iteration of what happened with Zulkin. So that's why I was like, I'd like to pay attention to that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued enough to put it in here, but not enough to back it.
And yeah, I haven't backed Arborea either. I want to see what it looks like, what it ends up playing like. So I feel you, man.
Well, here was the thing. This is called Search for Lost Species.
Oh yeah.
It's put out by the same. It's Renegade Press. It's put out by the same people that did Search for Planet X.
I like Renegade.
Similar kind of concept. But the Kickstarter was basically, get it early.
Right.
And I'm like, I can wait for it to come out in the store.
That's fair.
Yeah,
it just about Arborea.
Yeah, it just wasn't enough to pull the trigger. And I'm also wrestling with my own, fear of missing out kind of things, and trying not to get caught up in the hoopla on things like that, like I almost did with the Batman thing on GameFound. So resisted that.
Be strong.
Yeah. So, but those were, that was the one that I was really intrigued by. And then finally, I have gotten confirmation that Distilled is on its way. Now,
so if I could interrupt for just a second.
Sure.
My birthday was this past weekend. And
happy birthday, Mr. Double Nickel.
Thank you. Yes. And a friend showed up with whiskey. I have 2 lovely bottles waiting for me. So, and I just wanted to interject that as a, segue into what we got here.
Well, since we're there, I was away this weekend in Durham, North Carolina, where I was attending an engagement party where I am going to be the officiant in the wedding in October of this year. And they brought me a bottle of whiskey from Wyoming.
Wow.
Wyoming whiskey. Okay. So, but I also got an email from the guy doing Distilled. He's in Wisconsin, and unfortunately, Fun Again Games, which was originally his distributor, has basically gone out of business, or at least gone out of the distribution business, and he has had to punt. So what this guy has had to do, this is Paverson Games. What he's had to do is get all of these pallets of his games.
Okay.
He has brought the ones to Wisconsin where he lives, where he's going to deliver to you locally if you're in Wisconsin. And Quartermaster Logistics out of Florida has agreed to do the distribution. So I don't know how much extra or whatever additional costs he's incurred because of that. but
I'm
there
just
there were
curious about
3
how.
truckloads of games shipped from Indiana at Fun Again Games to Quartermaster Logistics, and Quartermaster sent me an email over the weekend confirming my address, so that should ship soon if it's not already shipped.
I didn't realize that Fun Again had. Oh wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Again, I don't know if it's out of business or just out of the distribution business.
Right. No, but that's.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Wow.
So that was and I, you know,
Oh, that poor bastard. That's a hell of a thing to try to do at the last minute.
yeah,
Man.
and you figure, you know, it's like his distribution breaks down at the last mile.
Right.
You know,
right.
the heart you got it manufactured in China, you got it on a boat, you got it out of Hong Kong, you got it to the States, and then you're stuck.
Oh, and that's got to add. And how do you not sue Fun Again or who those people were for like? Oh, wow.
Well, I will say this. I will say this. He was very complimentary in his updates that
nice.
they were doing everything they could to accommodate him.
Okay.
And that as their staff diminished, because, you know, you're closing and you got to go find another job. You get another job.
Right.
You have 10 people to do this. Now you're down to 2.
Right.
You got to do 10 times as much just to be equal. So, I mean, he was very complimentary of the staff and the organization. So I don't think, you know, anybody could come away from this. I didn't get the impression he was saying, screw those guys. I think they knew it was an unfortunate situation and they worked through that with him, or so it seemed.
Well, that's good that that's where it ended up. That's good. Okay. Yeah.
And then in the guise of, well, Jamie Stegmeyer just says, "Oh, look, a bunch of nerds in a barrel. I think I'll just shoot them." There's a Tapestry expansion. It is.
And we can't even talk about the side. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantasies and Futures.
Mustn't. Okay. So Tapestries, yes.
And a box to cover all the games. Wow. The Tapestry expansion. So yeah. Here, Jamie, take my money.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was.
I resisted. I want to see how this goes. And Laura, who's my usual, you know, partner in games as well as life, is like, I don't know about it. Like, okay, I'll wait. Oh, and then it was Robert. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. But man, yeah. Okay.
Well, the good news is it'll be shipping soon, and it'll be in the stores, and you can. So
yeah, figure that out. Yeah.
But then lastly, we were in Durham this past weekend, as I mentioned, and we went to Atomic Empire, the friendly local game store in Durham, North Carolina, on Westgate. If you're ever in Durham, please check them out. They're a worthwhile store. Man.
I used to go to Westgate all the time.
It's
been years.
Yeah. So we walk in, and Dale just walks right up to the shelves and immediately finds, without even really looking for it, Hickory Dickory, which is a game that came out about 4 months ago. When we were hearing about the buzz when it was coming out, she wanted to get it, but I thought it was a Kickstarter, and I never saw anything on it. And evidently it wasn't. It just sort of came out, and so we bought it. And it's over here. It's what we're going to try to play this weekend. We're going to let that jump ahead of the meadow to get it in. And it's interesting because it's got this, you know, clock, and you've got these mice.
The art is gorgeous. My God.
Yeah. You've got this mice, and you were talking about Arborea. Well, the clock hand moves, and your mice are on the clock hand, and they jump on or jump off, or they get shoved off because somebody else gets on. It's like a FIFO, a first in, first out.
Mm-hmm.
So as you go around and you're trying to do certain things to appease the bird of the clock, there seems to be a lot of movement and dynamic kind of thing. And of course, it's Hickory Dickory Dock, and there's, you know, the whole thing of the weights on the clock and all that stuff.
Too.
Yeah. So we're really excited about it. It's unusual that she finds the game and is excited about it, and then we find it. Usually it's me. Oh, I think you would like this, and she's like, yeah, I do like this, but this is
And you've
one
got the chips
she
as
discovered.
these. It looks like these chunky chips that look like they're from escapees from Azul.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty game,
Wow. Oh my God,
and
it's
and
beautiful.
and for the components that you get and the quality of the components, I think the retail on this is 55. Atomic
God,
usually does a bit
good
of a
God.
discount. I think it was like 47 and change at Atomic. So
Wow.
I just said, you know what, we're buying it. She's like, are you sure? And I'm like,
Hell
I
yeah.
come in this store all the time and I never buy anything because
Yeah.
I feel like I'm cheating on my friendly local game store down here. But because they had something that I know that they don't have at the other store, again,
Yeah.
rationalization. See that scene in Jeff Goldblum in The Big Chill when he talks about a rationalization.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Because we're not boomers, so we're
No,
gonna
not
skip
at
that.
all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah, so Hickory Dickory, we're very, very excited about that.
That
Now,
looks fantastic.
I will just these next two, and then I think we can jump into your writing class. This is more in the D&D tabletop thing. I after listening to or after our conversation with Professor Dungeon Master, I got the Audible version of Slaying the Dragon, A
Right.
Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great read, great listen, whatever your medium is. I highly recommend it. You come out of it with, I think, a very fair view of Lorraine Williams.
Okay.
And I think you come away with an amazing impression of Peter Atkinson. And you come away with an honest view of the Gygaxes as well. I mean, it's a very well balanced book. It doesn't go in with an agenda. He will say things like, this is the way it was portrayed. This is what people said. I was not able to interview Lorraine for this, so I don't want her side of the story has not been told.
Okay.
Therefore, we will chalk this up to people being pissed off at Lorraine, which I thought was fair.
Yeah.
No, very
absolutely.
fair. So I thought it was a really well done book. Yeah. And then just the other things I have in here, as I mentioned before, I did upgrade my 3D printers from the Anycubic Cobra Pro. Try that again. Anycubic Cobra Go to the Cobra Plus, just a larger footprint. Okay. And then I did the same thing with the Photon M3 to the Photon M3 Plus, which is the resin printer. And I was successfully able to sell both of the other printers at a fair discount since I had got them at Christmas, printed only a few things on them, and people bought them straight away. People I know from the game store. Ooh. So they were known people and people that were interested in getting in the hobby, and so that was cool.
Nice.
So it looks like you had some busy times here at Furman recently.
Yeah, my students, they turned in their first essay, and I had a fun time. It was like they turned in the essay, and I love to do this. They were like, "Okay, all right, y'all, thanks for turning that in. Everybody's good. Here's the next essay. Okay, here's the thing we're going to do next. Okay, I want everybody to put their laptops away." And they're just like, okay, and like, okay, here is this bag of games. I'm like, what? So brought a bunch of stuff out, and they pawed through them, and it was none of these games were games that they knew. So I knew that showing up, I had probably a dozen games that were all like, I need to be able to teach this in 2 minutes and get them going, right? Which is a magic trick that you have to do if you're someone who's hosting these sorts of things. So I got them going in a bunch of stuff. It was super fun to watch. So Magic Dance is one of the ones that I got a group going, because a lot of them know Sorry and Parcheesi, and every Parcheesi variant. And Magic Dance is a variant in which you put your little, Sorry, right? You've got your little 4 figures. You got your little green, blue, red, yellow, whatever. And then you move it out, you move it around, and you try to get it to home. The trick with Magic Dance is that you're witches, and so the color of your pieces are all hidden under a magic hat, under a little black hat. So you've got a little witch's hat, right? Little magic hat. And the color is hidden under that. So you bring all your pieces out, everybody brings their pieces out. Once your pieces are out, you can start moving other people's pieces as well. And it gets super chaotic, super quick. And it was fantastic watching them go, okay, this is basic. Okay, I'm going to pull my piece off. Ah, it's somebody else's piece. Yeah, it was fantastic.
See, all I could think of was, David Bowie in Labyrinth, Dance Magic Dance. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, it's not far off. But then a bunch of just sort of, there was a 5-2-1-1. This is the super basic card game that just I'd never seen before, and
Sure.
that was fun to watch. Cockroach Poker was perhaps my favorite, which is just a very basic. It's only poker because it's a basic bluffing game. Like, you hand a card to somebody, you say it's a cockroach, and they can say yes, it is. If it is, it comes back to you, and that's bad. If it isn't, then they have to keep it, right? Because you've bluffed them. Or what they can do is say, I don't know, and then they get to look at it and pass it to somebody else, and say whether it's a cockroach or that it's a bat or some other bug. And it was fun to watch the first 2 or 3 rounds. We're like, I don't even know what we're doing here. And it's just so fun to watch students with a game they don't know all of a sudden like lock into, oh, this is what the game is doing, and lose their minds. It's super fun. So Sushi Go was like that. Sushi Go, I think most people know. Dude is a super hilarious game where you've got a small deck of cards, maybe 8 or 10, and it has dude written on it in various ways.
Right.
Small dude, very large dude. And just listening to everybody say that. Dude. And then the deal is, you're trying to say dude the way you think. Then you hear somebody else saying dude, and you think, oh, are they saying dude the same way I'm saying dude based on this topography? Yeah, they don't think about that. You don't say, is this dude the same dude based on the topography? Yeah. And so it's hilarious to watch. Played the game with a student who had come in late. I'm like, man, I'm going to punish you by playing the game with me. We lost, but then he went after we did that, he took it to another group and then taught them. And that was fantastic. I was like, oh, my work here is done. Except that was like week 4 of the semester, so it's not nearly done. I'm playing Splendor with a couple of guys as other people were playing other things, like, let's do this. And it's so delightful to watch people who they don't know the game, they're a little bit suspicious, right? And then you say, here's this thing, and it could be interesting, and you kind of pitch a little bit of the interest to them, and they start to engage, and then they start to engage more, and then you like pull the training wheels off and you watch them have a fantastic time that they never expected. And that's, I think, one of the best things about teaching board games and getting people into tabletop games is, for me, watching those social moments evolve and the intellectual moments and engagements evolve as they decide, oh, this is a strategy. Oops, nope, I screwed that up. And it's just wonderful to watch. It's wonderful to do this with my students. I talked about having friends over, neighbors over last night, teaching them Wingspan, and watching the gears engage and go, oh, this is what I need to do. And it's super fun and amazing. And seeing that again and again as someone who teaches games and just being in this hobby, it just feels good every time.
Well, that's interesting, because I like how you kind of ended on that by saying that, that we know that there's community in games. And I think there is psychology in games. And we talked about, the cathartic nature of being able to paint for your games or play the game or what have you. And I think that's a nice segue into talking about our next episode that'll be coming up. If everything goes according to plan, which, people's schedules change, people get busy and stuff like that. Life happens. But we will be, next on our show, we'll be hosting Dr. Megan Connell. Megan might be known to some of you on the Geeks Like Us YouTube channel, where she plays D&D on Clinical Role, which is a bunch of clinical psychologists playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is absolutely amazing. Sometimes they do Minecraft, which is also fun to watch when they do it. But she has a new book coming out. Comes out on the 28th called Tabletop Role-Playing Therapy. And this is this is a real, I don't know how academic the book is. I know that she is a practicing clinical psychologist. I know that she works with young people, and I know for a fact that she used tabletop games in her role and role-playing in her therapy. And these young people create worlds and they create stories. And it's just been an amazing, to have heard her talk about that in the past. I'm very anxious to read the book, but I'm more excited about us talking to her. And I'm really looking forward to you meeting her. Dale and I had the opportunity to go over to her house one night and play games with her and her husband and her children, where we played Dungeon Mayhem. They taught us that. Their youngest child decided I was the target. So I was, in trouble every time. Squaring off with a 7-year-old, I believe it was 6 or 7 years old. And just taking it, because that's what you do. But also we taught them Wingspan. And so it was just a really fun evening. And then the pandemic happened, and we haven't had an opportunity to recreate that experience. We need to do that.
Well, I can tell you, one of the things I can tell you is, given my research, there's not another book like this. This is a first in class. So that's going to be fun. And weirdly, one of my dear friends here in town, her brother designed Dungeon Mayhem. So it's a small world, even if he's in California and we're all different. It's so that's amazing. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait for it as well. So we'll be back. We're kind of off schedule right now, just because of life, and March is always a busy time for me. I'm going to Washington this weekend for the Call on Congress for Colon Cancer Awareness. And then we have the race coming up. And so the Get Your Ear in Gear race here in Charlotte for colon cancer awareness. For those of you who don't know, I lost my brother Doc to colorectal cancer 6 years ago. And this is part of the way we keep his memory and his mission alive. But anyway,
get tested, y'all.
Get screened. It's younger and younger every time. And one of the topics we'll be talking about with Congress next week is let's make it even younger. But in the meantime, if you are enjoying this podcast, I encourage you to please go to layitonthetable.show and follow us there, so you'll get notifications when new shows come out. And if you are so inclined, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars and a nice review. It helps the algorithm, helps other people find us. And one day we might make $1 or $2 that helps pay for some of the stuff that we're doing out of pocket that makes this show possible. So we certainly appreciate that. And in the meantime...
Oh, and you can see us at Board Game Geek at our guild 4084. Just go to Lay It on the Table, Board Game Geek. That should send you right there.
You bet. I'm glad you said that. I didn't scroll up high enough to see that. And then I saw it. So it was right there in my notes. And these will all be in the show notes as well. So you can certainly go there and find us at these places. But in the meantime, or until next time, I am not bored. I am board gaming.
And I am James Engelhart, hoping that all your tiebreakers break your way.
Thanks, everybody. 1, 2, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
I got a new game. It's gonna be great. It's the latest craze of 1988. Got a couple of pencils and a drawing pad. It's gonna be gnarly, it's gonna be rad. It's Pictionary, put your piece on the board. Pictionary, now what was that word? Pictionary, all this sketch is absurd. Pictionary,